Hi guys, it's Ray here, Man City Fan Chat, and I'm joined today by Kieran Maguire. You remember Kieran? He's a big finance expert, huge football fan. As he said to me last time, he's got the best job in the world where he just talks about football. And you may remember that he's a Brighton fan. So City playing Brighton on Saturday, and who better to speak to than a big football fan, big numbers man, Kieran Maguire. How you doing, Kieran?
I'm sound. I'm looking forward. Well, I'm looking sort of forward to the Etihad. You know, we're resigned to if it's less than 3, we count it as a good result. I think on Saturday, and that's for a club of Brighton's resources, then I think you've got to be realistic in your expectations.
But I would suggest you got a new manager, and already from the little I've seen of the highlights and stuff that I've seen of Brighton, probably about 15 minutes worth. This season, you only played 3 games. You look a better attacking unit. You got better ideas. You're not looking just to go out and claw a result. You're actually looking to go out and play attractive football. So surely that gives you some encouragement with your new manager.
Yeah, I mean, Graham Potter's come in. The first match we went to was Watford away. And we turned them over. We beat them 3-0, but everybody was sort of jaws were dropping. We're no longer playing one man up front. He switched to a 3-4-3 formation, and we're playing with 3 centre halves, which I've never seen in my time watching the Albion, and that's the best part of 50 years. So it was a good start. Even the 2 home games, we drew against West Ham. We battered them, but we conceded a silly goal.
Yeah.
And then last Saturday, we were all over Southampton, and we've got a proper psychopathic Romanian centre forward in Florin Andoni, and he just decided to stick his studs into somebody's leg, and everybody looked at it and said, "Well, that's a red card." And when your own fans are saying it's a red, you know there's no coming back.
Yeah.
So,
but you played well with 10 men, though. You actually did play well with the 10 men, and it looked like you were. It did look like a pretty even game, even though you were man down.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. If you look at the goals we've conceded this season, and this is where I'm a bit nervous when it comes to playing City. Every time it's come from losing possession just inside the opposition half. And then 2 passes later, we're picking the ball out of the net. Now, that really plays into City's sort of style of play, where they do press you. And then, the speed of the players and the accuracy of the passing from City is going to punish, especially when we've got 3 centre halves, two of whom are 6'4" and 1 6'7".
Wow.
So,
keep the ball on the ground, lads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're good, but they've not got the greatest amount of pace. So,
but you're right. I think it's going to happen if you're going to play that more adventurous style with a 3-4-3 rather than like you'd normally expect 5-4-1. Then when you look, obviously the risk is there, but you've got to risk it to get that reward of the attractive football and more opportunities to score the goal. So it's just how do you think Brighton will balance that risk against City? Because I don't personally see them going back into their shells and playing 5-4-1. Not now that Potter's here. And if you do that against City, you'll probably still get beat.
Exactly. So we might as well play to our strengths. We do have a couple of really good new signings this season who do have pace, you do need pace in the Premier League because you're up against players who are that much stronger, that much quicker, that much leaner. And by recruiting well, and the previous season we recruited poorly, and there's no doubt about that, it does mean we're going into matches now with a more positive mindset.
Yeah, I think you spent over 50 million this summer, which, okay, you can see in this day and age is maybe not that much. But for Brighton, that's quite a lot, 50 million on. I think obviously you got the guy from Brentford, the French guy Maupay.
Yeah.
You got Webster, and you got a guy I like his name. Was it Trossard or Trossard? Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he's a crack. He's already looking a bargain. think I described him as a pound shop Eden Hazard, in that he's Belgian, he's small, got a low centre of gravity, but if you get him on the ball, it's then difficult to get it off him. He's a lot stronger than he looks, and he's looking to drive into the opponent's box, and he's looking to take on defenders. Whereas historically, we'd always lay the ball off and then push it out, get it across into Glenn, with hoping that Murray would do something with it when it got into the box. But normally it would be Glenn Murray against 3 or 4 defenders, and you're going to struggle.
Well, I think it was the last game. Was it Glenn Murray was on the bench? Is Glenn Murray spending more time on the bench now because you've got these new players? And is he your, let's say, plan B later on in the game?
I think that could easily be the case this season. He did start the first couple of games, and he played the classic centre forward role. People were very impressed with the combination of Mopé and Andoni when we beat Watford. Both of them came on as substitutes and scored within 5 minutes. And I think the manager fancied giving them both a run out because their style of play, they're not as big as Glenn Murray, but they're clearly a lot younger and a lot quicker. And he felt that would trouble the Southampton central defence. And they were. You could tell that Southampton were feeling pretty uncomfortable with regards to those two up front. And then we go and mess it up.
Yeah. I mean, looking at Brighton's season then, I mean, it looks like, as I said, you look better than last season. You look more, as one of Brighton fan I spoke to yesterday said, progressive. Do you see yourselves fighting against relegation this season, or would you see yourself in a more comfortable position this season? I'm not saying pushing top 10 or something, but in that kind of middle ground, that as long as you can keep being consistent and not have a bad run of 6 or 8 games and then you drop down, do you see yourself in a much better position, health-wise? Because obviously when you're right at the bottom, your stress levels go through the roof. Do you see yourself having a more relaxed season?
I still think we'll be bottom 6. I think, as you said, we will have a run of bad results.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that run of bad results hasn't already started. To drop 5 points against West Ham and Southampton, we could have easily have won both of those games had we taken our chances and had we kept 11 men on the pitch. So now it's you've got to get points at home and then occasionally pick up points away. So that's not a particularly good start. I think that certainly the mentality amongst the fan base is far more positive than we had under Chris Hughton. And nobody will say a bad word about Chris because he took us from 4th bottom in the Championship into the Premier League. And what's more, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet in your life.
Absolutely.
So, I've got the utmost respect for him. I was pretty angry when he was sacked. I think he didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
But we've got a chairman, and our chairman's a billionaire because he's smart and he's ruthless. And he made a smart and a ruthless decision. Well, I'm hoping it's going to be proved to be a smart decision. Graham Potter is certainly more progressive in terms of his more analytical style, in terms of perhaps some of the techniques he's using, and he's trying to encourage the players to adopt. We've already seen in the first 3 games that we've had the majority of possession in each of those. Now, that was unheard of under Chris. We were compact, we would give the ball away, and we would make ourselves difficult to break down. And it worked because, you said Brighton spent £60 million this summer. That means we've spent now the best part of £200 million in the 3 years we've been in the Premier League. And the overall quality of the squad is significantly higher than it was 12 months ago.
Yeah. When you kept, there were murmurings that, was it Mr. Dunk, one of your centre-backs, might be leaving because obviously the merry-go-round eventually started, maybe too late in the window for you to lose too many of the players that you might want to keep, with Kieran Maguire going for that, quite frankly, ridiculous 85 million to United. And I thought at that point the merry-go-round would start, and there was murmurings that Aki might be going from Bournemouth to Leicester, and Dunk might go maybe to Leicester, or Dunk might go to Bournemouth if Bournemouth was selling Ake for 60 million. But I mean, are you glad that you didn't lose any of your I think you generally consider your better players?
Yeah, I think everybody's delighted with who we've kept. I mean, there was a bit of disappointment that Anthony Knockaert was allowed to go, but it was quite clear that his style of play, I mean, he is a classic winger, and that just doesn't fit into Graham Potter's plans. So whilst it's a disappointment, because Knockaert, in the year that we were promoted from the Championship, he won the Player of the Year in the Championship, and he won it rightly. I mean, he was absolutely unstoppable. And also, to sort of give him an analogy from a sort of a City type of player, he's a bit like the old Peter Barnes.
Yeah.
You know, a real old sort of socks down winger who just wanted to take on defenders and wanted to get the ball across, and also had a cracking shot at it. And he was a nutty Frenchman. So you want your Frenchman to be sulking, and he knew when things weren't working for him, the whole 30,000 people in the stadium knew about it. It would be the hands on the hips, it would be the hands thrown up, and the shouting at everybody. And I don't want football players to be robots. To buy into the emotional side of things is part of the reason why we love the game.
Yeah, absolutely. When you mention your fans, I mean, getting crowds of just over 30,000 now. I mean, a few years ago, that would have been unheard of, I think, at Brighton. I mean, you've had a couple of ground changes, or at least ground name changes. You had the Goldstone ground years back, which I remember growing up as a kid. So you've had a couple. And I mean, what do you see as the future? I mean, what's your capacity? And would you, if you can steady yourself and get a few more years in the Premier League, would you look to expand that? Is there the capacity there in Brighton for a bigger stadium?
I mean, the stadium is still brand new. I think it's only started in 2011. When they got original planning permission, it was for a 21,000 capacity stadium. But they did future-proof it, and within 12 months, that 21,000 went up to 28, 29, and now 30. Because of the way it's built, I don't know whether you have been there, but it is a bowl-style stadium. There's no way of expanding it further. But I think we've got to be realistic. We're Brighton Hove Albion. We're never going to win anything in the Premier League. We're never going to be challenging for the top six. So how are you going to attract more fans? I mean, I think there's currently about 8,000 fans on the waiting list for a season ticket, which is gobsmackingly amazing. But that will drop, because when I talk to fans of clubs like Stoke and Palace and so on, they've said the same thing to me. The first year in the Premier League is great. It's the big adventure. It's all gone. We're hosting City, we're hosting United, we're hosting Chelsea. We've got a chance to go to Anfield and to the Etihad and so on. And then the second season, I've been to that ground.
Yeah.
If you look on this Saturday, I think we might be bringing 2,000, but we're not selling out both tiers that we could have had. And therefore, I think we've got to know our place in the pecking order of football. Putting on my finance hat, getting an extra 3,000 fans into the ground, in the wider scheme of things, is neither here nor there, and it's just a load of aggravation. And I think from an architectural point of view, it would be a very, very difficult exercise. I don't think it's cost effective. And anybody who wants a ticket to watch the Albion can get one. So there are match day tickets available. If you take a look at the first couple of games, we weren't at capacity, whereas we were at capacity for practically every game last season. People have already started to pick and choose which matches they're going to.
Okay. I mean, when we talk about expanding stadia, City have got a capacity, I think we've had a planning permission for it to go up to about 60, 62 by putting a third tier on the north stand. At the moment, I think we've got 3 tiers on the south stand, which is where I sit. We can do the same on the other side, which we haven't done yet. I mean, yes, we get some jibes about not filling our stadium and everything else. And we are actually just wondering whether they're waiting to see whether we get the real seating. There's people are looking at that. I think Wolves, when they expanded their stadium, they put some rail seatings in, or the capacity to have the rail seatings. I think Spurs, have they done something similar?
They have, yeah.
And I mean, so that's going to be the next thing. It's just in football in general. What do you think of the idea? I mean, you probably grew up like me on the Tebases, standing next to a bar. If you could get next to the bar, because that's quite nice to lean onto something during a game. Do you see, hopefully in the near future, getting some real seatings and helping the atmosphere? Because loads of fans complain about the atmosphere is not the same as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Do you see, if we get real seating, that will help the atmosphere in some of the older grounds?
Well, first of all, I hope it does take place. I did go to White Hart Lane, not White Hart, the new White Hart Lane, whatever they choose to call it, at the end of last season, and it was one of those games where we defended for 90 minutes. We didn't get into the Spurs half, and then they scored in the 89th, and it was just one of those sickening games. The rail seating worked superbly because in the away end, you know what it's like. Yeah. You stand up. So I felt that worked really well. We're not animals. We are football fans. I think we ought to be given a bit of credit for having more intelligence than the media, than the politicians and the decision makers give to us. We're not going to riot just because we're allowed to stand up officially.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be great if City could have something similar.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Champions League game against Spurs. It was their first, I think, game, big game, and I've got to be honest. I mean, I took some video, and it was. I'm a City fan, but it was, hairs on the back of your neck, standing up and spine tingling, or whatever you want to say. To see about 15,000 fans all grouped together, and it just went on and on at the back, and. Obviously, the way they've got their motto up there and everything else, and the atmosphere, whether it was piped or not, the atmosphere was fantastic. It was an amazing place to be, and to have Spurs would have had somewhere in the region of 55 to 57,000 fans there. So dwarfing the 3,000 City fans, and they certainly made a lot of noise. So the atmosphere was there. It'd be interesting to see what it's like in 3 or 4 years' time, whether it's a similar thing, because obviously the novelty will have kind of worn off. But I'm really excited about the idea for Manchester City anyway, of getting the real seatings, redesigning the stadium a little bit where the away fans sit, because this sit right smack bang with the City fans. What we want is the City fans just put them in a corner somewhere. So you don't see them. But the club won't do that. I think they want to keep around. Let's just quickly move on to the game on the weekend. Just before that, I'll just ask everybody this. What do you think of City's team in terms of, look, 2 seasons back, we've got 100 points. We call ourselves the Centurions. Last season, we won all the domestic trophies. The club called themselves the Fourmidables. Some of us say treble winners, domestic treble winners. I mean, you obviously, like me, we watch football for nearly 50 years. You probably 50 years by now. Do you rank this City team compared to like the Invincibles, compared to United's treble winners in 99, the best Chelsea teams, and even if you go back into the late 80s, that it was a wonderful Liverpool team. How would you rank this City team?
I'm not saying it because I'm talking to you and you're a City fan. I've never seen football before the way that City have played in the last 2 years. And it reminds me a bit. I don't know whether you're a Star Trek fan. It reminds me a bit of the Borg. That the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Whereas if you take a look at some of those sides which you previously mentioned, you think of the Arsenal Invincibles. Well, it was always Thierry Henry, and he was surrounded by fantastic players, but by God, he was good. And similarly with some of the other clubs you mentioned. What amazes me about City is that every single one of their players is a ball player.
Yeah.
And that is unusual. It's the fact that they can turn defence into attack so quickly. It's whenever they lose possession, they get possession back so quickly. And when they attack, they attack as a swarm, not as 2 or 3 players, which makes it really difficult to defend. So I think they've set a standard, which it's up now to the other sides to say, and the sniping that City get, I just don't quite understand that. If something is that good, well, surely you should aspire to be the same. And to be fair to Liverpool, they have also brought up their standard, and it's absolutely brilliant. I think if we look to see who I think your competitors are this season, it's going to be Liverpool. Chelsea already look a little bit lost. Arsenal are Arsenal. They're in transition. Spurs are
transition for about 15 years, Arsenal.
True. I think Spurs look a bit flaky for me, and United, they will flatter to deceive. They'll get a couple of victories back to back, and the press will be saying that it's Solskjaer's going to lead them to another Premier League title, and then Pogba will disappear for 2 or 3 matches as he does. On his day, I think he's a fantastic player, but he's one of those players who you've got to accept that in a 38-match season, for 12 of them, he's going to go missing.
Yeah. Well, I like your analogy where you say, your point where you say, someone has set a standard, you should aspire to them. You shouldn't snap. You shouldn't try and drag them. But I did a video yesterday or the day before about señor Tebas, the La Liga president, who probably for the 4th time in the last 12 months has had a pop mainly at City and PSG. And he's trying to, sully the names and drag them down. And I've always said, well, why don't you aspire to do what the Premier League are doing? Yeah. And actually start off by looking in-house at what you're doing, how you spread the TV money in Spain, where the bulk of it, I think, still, they might have spread it a little bit more to the other clubs, but the bulk still goes to 2 clubs in Spain, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And focus on raising the standards and the marketability in your own league rather than having a pop at other leagues. Just because, I think they've lost players like, they've always had pretty much the best players some of the best players in the world. When Neymar was around, whether you like him or not, you could argue when they had Ronaldo in La Liga, Messi, and Neymar, they probably had 3 of the best 3 players in the world. Now 2 of them have gone, and they see the winners of the Champions League final last season were 2 English teams. Europa League, 2 English teams. We monopolised it, and the best English team wasn't even there. So I just think they're worried. And what do you think about talking about other leagues and talking about this game in where they were trying to get a game in America, which I think hopefully has died a death, but I think they'll try and resurrect it just to make money. And we're back to money. It's all about money.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think what he's doing, Tebas, it's smokescreen tactics. Real Madrid, they keep swapping their managers. Yeah. They've got one of their star players in Bale who clearly has fallen out with the manager. They've signed Hazard, and Hazard's he's come with a big fee. He's come with a big wage packet. He doesn't look fit. If you're a professional footballer, you should be at the start of the season. You should be absolutely raring to go. If I think about the matches I've seen at the Amex since we've got to the Premier League, Hazard for me has been the best player I've seen in an individual performance, because he ran across the field, but his feet never touched the ground. He just floated. And I've not seen that too often. I've been to the Etihad a couple of times for Champions League matches. I've got a Citizens card. Yeah. And I saw it when Messi played once. And when you realise that you're in the presence of a genius, it doesn't matter which shirt he's wearing. You've just got to accept you are watching a genius. But I don't think Hazard feels particularly comfortable since going to Real Madrid. Yeah. So now they're trying to distract from the fact that they spent an absolute fortune over the summer, and to date it doesn't look as if that's paid off. Now, it's very early into the season, so you should never jump to the conclusions. But this is what Spanish politicians will do, and the nature of the ownership models of Spanish the Spanish giant clubs is that it is very political. So what do? You play the man, not the ball, and then you try to focus on something else.
Yeah.
Manchester City have spent less money than Real Madrid this summer. Manchester City's wage bill is substantially less than Real Madrid's. So, pipe down and concentrate on your own team.
So what you're saying is when Trossard scores a hat-trick at the weekend, I should just sit back and admire his genius.
Absolutely. Yeah. But if he does score a hat-trick, I think you should. I mean, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I'm going back to Senor Tebas. I mean, I did sort of look at some of the numbers, and you look back in years gone by, look at 2 years ago when Barcelona bought, idiotically, in my opinion, Coutinho and Ousmane Dembele for a combined 250 million quid. It's like it's staggering. And if you look back in Real Madrid's past, when they bought Ronaldo back in 2009, they also got Kaká.
Yeah.
That season, they spent 140 million quid on those two players, and that was in 2009. And you can go back to, I think it was 2001. They got two big players in 2001 in Luis Figo and Zidane himself. And I think they spent the best part of 110, 120 million quid. So they're not averse to spending huge sums of money. And they were quite happy to spend it 18 years ago or 10 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago. So you've got to look sometimes closer to home. Yeah, you're right. It's just it's a smoke screen. It's a diversionary tactic because, you're being basically usurped on and off the pitch. The Premier League's TV deals are much better than La Liga. La Liga want to shout that they've got the best product or the best league. And, when you got 4 finalists, all English teams, you can't really say that they're a stronger league right now. It's England. It's a bit cyclical. And, maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, it'll be Spain again.
Yeah, it could be. And, some of the people at the Premier League get a lot of stick. I've always actually defended Richard Scudamore, and I appreciate I'm in the minority here.
You are.
But I think what he has done, which he doesn't got credit for, is that he was the first person to go to China, to go to Thailand, to go to Nigeria, and he flogged those TV rights. And in doing so, he's built up a following for the Premier League, and that following has resulted in more and more subscribers. So every time they go to renew those monies, it's a fantastic deal because the Premier League football is now the crack cocaine of broadcasting rights.
Yeah,
and it's due to the people at the Premier League, and that's also the likes of Rick Parry when it was set up. They went out overseas, and in those days they gave it away for nothing, just to build up profile. And La Liga was really sniffy. And now it's come back to bite them in the bum, and they're jealous of the fact that the English clubs have actually they're more than one step ahead, and I can't see the Spanish clubs getting back.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I mean, that overseas rights, if I remember correctly, the current law, I think that the domestic rights are about a little bit static the last round. They're not increased by a lot. But the overseas are about, I think City will get about 12 or 13 million pounds a year more. And if you put that, I think some of the other clubs will get a bit less, obviously depending on where you finish in the league and whatever, 180 or whatever it is, million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And the other thing that I think helps the Premier League is some of the distribution of the wealth. So you can finish 20th in the Premier League, but you'll still get well over 100 million pounds. And that gives you enormous buying power. I have no idea what the bottom team in the Liga will get, but it'll be a fraction of the 100 million plus that Huddersfield got last season, for instance. And I mean, how much of a difference do you think that makes?
I think it makes a huge amount of difference because if you are a Premier League club, and let's face it, a club like Brighton, we as I say to you, we know where we are in the pecking order, but we can outbid practically every club in Europe except for those clubs that are qualifying for the Champions League and the Europa League. So that gives us, as a club that's going to finish somewhere between 14th and 20th this season in the Premier League, that gives us the ability to recruit good players, which improves the quality of the Premier League product. We've already seen this season, Crystal Palace have won, and I hate Crystal Palace, but they've won at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Last season we beat United. Last season practically everybody beat Arsenal. Spurs were being turned over at the likes of Burnley and Southampton.
Yeah.
And there's this element of unpredictability in the Premier League because these smaller clubs can go out and they can sign players for 15, 20, 25 million. And clubs in Portugal and the Netherlands and
have to sell
most of the clubs in Germany, with the exception of Dortmund and Bayern and some of the others at the top, they can't afford to do that.
Well, you got Trossard from, was it Genk in Belgium? He was their captain. They won the league last season, and you plucked him away from there for about 16, 17 million pounds. And there's really not much they could. I mean, it was a huge amount of money for them. And there's really nothing they could do about it.
No, and they were quite happy with the fee, so everybody's happy. He's got himself a Premier League pay packet. We've signed ourselves what we hope, what looks like to be a really exciting prospect, and his previous club have pocketed 16 million quid. So that shows how it works.
Yeah. I mean, to wrap it up. There's one last question going back to we flip-flop between finances and football in general, but finish off on the match in question. What do you think is going to happen on Saturday, and what would you give as a score prediction?
I think it'll be 2-0 to City. I think we will look quite promising for the first 20 minutes. We'll then get over ambitious. Martin Montoya, our right back, will miss out on a 50-50. You'll break down the left and score the first goal, and then something similar will happen in the second half, and then you'll get bored.
Yeah, well,
leave it as that.
I don't think it's bored, but I think we will get. I noticed it against Bournemouth. Once we got restored our 2-goal lead on Sunday, we just passed it around the back. We were not interested in scoring another goal. In all honesty, it was just passing it around, and in that hot weather, the Bournemouth players were knackered. They were just running the forward. You could just see them running around at the back, our defenders and wingers trying to get the ball, knowing they knew they weren't going to get the ball, but they knew they had to run because that's what you have to do at a club like Bournemouth. Otherwise, the manager will be on your back and the fans will be on your back. And you knew you're on to hide into nothing, but you've got to do it. And I think and I noticed as well a lot last season, once we got 1 or 2 goals up, we did take our foot off the pedal. And sometimes we just teams would try to come on to us again, and then we'd just say, all right, you're being rude now, and we'd score the goal or two. Yeah. I think there was a silly stat last season. Was it a third of all games we scored at least 3 goals or 4 goals?
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you one question with respect to City, as somebody who's not a City fan? What is the ambition in terms of the Champions League? Because there does appear to be a bit of indifference from the fan base.
Yeah.
I think the owners have a different perspective. I think the owners would love to win it.
Yeah.
How much would it mean to you as a City fan to win it compared to the achievements you've had in recent years?
It's a different thing. I was talking to a lot of City fans on Sunday at the away game, and I think most of the fans who go to away games generally have been City fans for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And to a man that I asked, they said Premier League this season. Everybody said Premier League. I asked people when we went to West Ham, a few said Champions League, and these guys have been going 40, 50 years. And I always ask the same question, Premier League. You can only win one. Most people say the Premier League. And it's kind of, and I look at it and say, look, if you look at our recent history before we were taken over by Sheikh Mansour, we'd gone through some very, very thin times. Relegation, another relegation, bouncing back eventually, but nearly going to the wall under the ownership of Thaksin Shinawatra. So we were just initially glad to win anything. Even now, I still think the core and most City fans want to win the Premier League, but it's changed in the last 12 months.
Okay.
There are more of the older fans. A few of them are now saying it's about time we won the Champions League, and a lot of the younger fans saying, well, it's about time we won the Champions League. And a lot of other fans, their only dig at City now is you haven't won the Champions League. So some of the younger fans want to win it just to shut them up, and in some of the older fans as well. And I think as well, we've always been, when we've been in the top flight, we've always felt we've got a chance to win the title. We've not been in the Champions League for not even 10 years yet. So it's relatively new. Whereas, fighting for the title or having a chance, we've done that for most of my life, apart from when we were in the first division and second division. So I think that's part of the whole dynamic. But I think every year, especially if we keep winning the Premier League, you will get more and more people who'll say, well, it's about time we win the Champions League. I want to win the Champions League now. You'll see it, I'm sure, in the next 2 or 3 years, that will carry on. And you'll get to a stage where, I don't know when it'll be half and half, but you'll get more, as I said, more and more people want to win that Champions League just to get that. Some of it's just to get that monkey off our back. The owners obviously want to win it. They won't say so. Pep wants to win it, although he won't. He's diplomatic and says no. And David Silva, the captain, and others, they'll say the same. We work 9 or 10 months to win, and every week you're training to win the weekend in the league. That's your bread and butter, and that's it's what you do at home that counts, or whatever Shankly said about winning the domestic versus European competition. But we want to win it, of course, because that's the ultimate, you could argue, of club football. It's still a cup competition, and I think that's what makes it difficult to win it. And the way we've played, you can't go into a tie and lose 6 goals against Monaco over 2 legs and hope to win. You can't go into a tie and lose 4 goals to Spurs. And there is that mentality issue, because let's be honest. Spurs generally score 1 goal maximum against City in a game. It's very rare that they'll do more, at least for a few years. And the 2 goals he scored the other week, they had 2 shots on target and they got 2 goals. So generally, we let them score 3 goals in the Champions League. So there is a mentality issue there. Personally, I just hope Pep just says, right, stuff it. We're going to go and win every game. That's the mentality you want, and not like at Spurs shut up shop. But yeah, as I said, I feel it a little bit more from other people, not as much from myself, but there's a little bit. If you say, well, I'm 95% Premier League and 5% Champions League. Next season, it might be 90 and 10. The world will slowly turn. We want to win everything. It's one of those things. When you're on the top, try to be humble, but take as much as you can, because you don't know when it'll turn. Look, 7 years ago, Bolton were in the Premier League.
Yeah, and
they've nearly gone to the wall. So you just don't. I don't ever see that happening at City. But you just don't know when you look. You got one of the richest clubs in the world in Man United, with one of the highest turnovers in the world, who we're looking to get 6th again this season in the Premier League. And you could imagine that back in 2013 they were winning the Premier League under Sir Alex Ferguson. So in 6 years, you can see what a slump they've had, and they couldn't make it up. So I think take what we can. If the Champions League comes, it's great, but still, for now, I'm a Premier League man all day long.
Fair dues.
Yeah. Are you coming on Saturday? Are you going to be up at the game, or are you busy?
Oh, yeah. I've got 4 tickets. I've got friends coming up, and me and the missus, and then another couple are going to the match. Yeah, I wouldn't miss it.
Well, I hope the weather's nice. It was sunny last weekend in Manchester, but I tell you what, it was absolutely chucking it down today. So it's like, hang on, 2 days ago it was like 28 degrees, and today it's belting it down all day. But look, I hope you have a great time. I hope you can score a goal as a consolation. And I hope the weather stays nice. And if we get a chance to meet up, that'd be cool. But guys, I've got to say a huge thank you to Kieran. He's one of our most popular guests on the channel, and people love your insight, your honesty, and your expertise. And hopefully, we'll get you on another time, and hopefully it won't be around the time of a demise of a local football club.
Yeah, it'd be nice to come back with a good news story. Yeah,
good news story.
thanks for having me on as well. Really appreciate
Kieran,
it.
it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. You take care, and
Okay.
hope to see you on Saturday.
Cheers, bud. Ta-ra now.
Thank you.